74. Good morning, everyone, and thanks for joining us here on 10 TV Plus and on Facebook as we are talking about a good potential for thunderstorms here later on today. And we have that 10 weather impact as we are tracking the risk for strong to even severe thunderstorms as we get later into the afternoon and through this evening. So a lot of things going to be unfolding here for today. Going to kind of watch and see how the storms are going to be developing as we get into the afternoon. We saw a lot of storms even yesterday further to our west in parts of Iowa, Minnesota, Wisconsin, producing severe weather out there. It's that same storm now tracking to the east that's going to bring us the risk of severe weather later on today. So if you have any questions, if you're watching us on Facebook, you can post a question in the comment section, and I'll be answering those here over the course of the next half an hour. But let's dive into it. I know a few of you have been waiting for a weather update, so let's go ahead and talk about what we are tracking here for today. The risk of strong, and like I said, even severe thunderstorms later on this afternoon. The highest risk is going to be for some damaging wind gusts that could exceed 60, maybe upwards of 70 miles per hour. Something that we're also tracking is the risk for maybe a few tornadoes. There's a lot of wind energy associated with this storm that could bring that risk for a couple of tornadoes here with the strongest of storms if they can start to rotate a little bit and tap into some of that rotation with this big storm system. But also the risk for some hail. We talked about that yesterday. The risk that we could see some hail up to near golf ball size is not out of the question. With more of those storms that can really give their act together, can grow stronger and have a lot of energy that they tap into. So we are tracking that risk here for today. So the timing for it going to be starting as early as 1 o'clock this afternoon. We're already tracking storms that are in Indiana, parts of Missouri, Arkansas, a couple different complexes of storms, and we're going to watch to see how those progress as they get further to the east. Do they continue to stay strong, or do they start to weaken and fall apart? If they weaken and fall apart, then our risk is going to be a little bit later on as we get more redeveloping storms later into the afternoon. But again, the risks are there for wind, damaging wind gusts over 60 miles per hour, some hail over quarter size up to golf ball size, not out of the question. Of course, heavy rainfall, and we'll have to watch for if any of those storms can start to rotate and could produce a couple of tornadoes across a rather large area that we're monitoring across the state of Ohio. But the risk actually does extend further to the east into Pennsylvania, into New York State, and also back to the south and west. Right now, though, it's quiet. You know, it's actually pretty nice out there. We have temperatures in the mid-70s. Overall, we got the warm temperatures. We got more of that humidity. Dew points are starting to rise, and that's going to be the fuel. Dew point temperature, that's a measurement of the moisture in the air, and that's all the fuel that the storms can really get into and become strong to severe as we get really into the prime time, the heating of the day, as our temperatures get up into the upper 70s and lower 80s. On the radar right now, not a lot happening. We have a couple showers to the north. Those are around Marion, Kenton. Not a lot happening with those showers. Those are really kind of falling apart. Then we're watching, you can see there was some lightning with that. Those really started to weaken over the last few hours. Now we have another complex of some showers that actually is also starting to weaken as it's getting to the east. So that's kind of been the trend right now. And that could continue at least with that round of showers and this round of showers here going into Toledo at the moment. But as we look back to the south and west, we're tracking another complex, and this one's a little bit stronger. This complex of showers and storms there moving from Illinois about to cross the border into Indiana. Nothing severe with that, but some stronger storms not out of the question that could produce some gusty winds, maybe up to near 50 miles per hour, but also some smaller hail, and we'll have to watch to see if those get any stronger, especially as they continue to track across Indiana. They wouldn't be getting to Ohio until early this afternoon, so they're going to be tapping into some of that environment, the heating of the day, the moisture that we have around here, so they could start to get a little bit stronger as they move into the state. Then, way back to the south and west here, you can see a large complex of showers and storms, and notice some of the boxes here. There's actually warnings on that. There are severe weather warnings. We have severe thunderstorm warnings down there. There's even a couple tornado warnings. But I want to talk about this one because this is going to be the first one that we'll have to watch right in there. You can see there's a lot of yellow, there's some red in there, and even notice there's some lightning. So these are thunderstorms, and these are tracking to the east-northeast. So likely going to kind of stay near and parallel to Interstate 70, tracking into the Indianapolis area, and really over the next few hours going to be watching them track across the state and then moving into Ohio. And that's going to be what we have to watch, at least initially, to see if they hold strong. If they don't, then we might not have to worry about that too much. But if we start to see some warnings popping up, then it's going to be more of a concern for the early afternoon, that 1 o'clock timing, 1, 2, 3 o'clock this afternoon for this complex to roll through. And if it falls apart, that would be, of course, some better news. But then as we shift back to the south and west again, there's that larger complex moving through Missouri right now, Springfield, Missouri. Those red polygons there, those red boxes, those are tornado warnings. So these are pretty severe with potential for tornadoes, potential for some high wind gusts even, and also some small hail, and also really a lot of heavy rainfall with this complex as it tracks to the east-northeast. And that's one we're going to be watching, but I think that's going to stay further to our south, and it's going to be storms that develop that aren't even around yet, that develop here this afternoon that we're really going to have to watch. So this is the severe weather outlook for today. We've been talking about it for the last several days. In fact, we issued this weather impact day here back on Sunday as we were tracking that potential for severe weather, and it started to increase as we went into the later afternoon hours of Sunday, and really especially for yesterday and today. So we have this orange. This is a level 3 out of 5. So 5 is the highest that it can go to. Yesterday there was a level 4 across Minnesota, Iowa, and Wisconsin, but today we have a level 3, which is still pretty significant when you talk about these severe weather outlooks, and it does encompass a rather large area. Everyone here in the 10 TV viewing area, really that covers all of central Ohio, Columbus, Lancaster, Chillicothe, Waverly, Jackson, all under that risk for strong to severe thunderstorms. But then as we zoom out, notice it does cover an even larger area stretching all the way from northern Kentucky, southern parts of Indiana through Ohio and into Pennsylvania and even upstate New York, seeing that risk for thunderstorms. And a lot of these are going to be those storms that develop later on this afternoon as we really get into that prime time. Again, the heating of the day, seeing a lot more moisture around, that's going to be that fuel for those storms to develop, in addition to what we're already tracking on the radar picture here at the present time. Those storms, like I said, could start to weaken. So let's look at this on the hour-by-hour forecast. And here we go by noontime. That complex that we're watching right now, there's some showers. They're not really that strong. But notice here by 3 o'clock, some of that activity does start to move in and it does strengthen. So we're starting to see some of that red showing up there on the future radar picture. And that could be an indication that we could be talking about some of the stronger thunderstorms, maybe not quite severe. They could become severe even by 3 p.m. And this would be moving through the Columbus metro into Circleville, Lancaster, producing that potential for those higher wind gusts. And what we have to really watch this afternoon is how the storms develop and then how they evolve as we go through, just a couple of hours or so, if they kind of stay isolated, just separate little cells of storms, those could be capable of producing that hail and even tap into that potential for rotation and produce a tornado. But if they develop like this into a line, then we're more likely looking at a higher wind scenario. Damaging wind gusts would be a bigger concern. And really, that is what that outlook is there for today. That orange that you saw there, the highest risk is for those damaging wind gusts that could exceed 60 miles per hour. But it doesn't mean that there isn't a risk for hail and tornadoes. It is there. It just might be a little bit lower. But if one storm, all it takes is one storm can tap into that energy and produce hail and produce a tornado, that's going to be something that we have to watch very closely. But in addition to some damaging wind gusts that could also knock some trees down and cause some problems here this afternoon. And then they really form into a bigger complex here. 4 o'clock, again, impacting areas around the Columbus metro here just around the evening rush hour. And then Lancaster down to Logan, Chillicothe, back towards the south and west. And that whole complex quickly moves to the east. These storms are going to be moving at a rather fast clip as we get into this afternoon. Some of the speeds yesterday with storms with the same storm system were moving over 50 miles per hour. So they're going to be quick, and that's one of the reasons why we're not really talking about a flooding threat. If the storms were moving slowly and moving over the same location one after another, that's when you really start to get that heavy rainfall leading to flash flooding. But because the storms are moving quickly, doesn't look like that's going to be as high of an impact here for today. So that is also good news. Of course, we had a lot of flooding going on just about a month ago, and we don't really need to deal with that anymore. And hopefully we don't have to deal with too much severe weather today, but it is at least something that we have to watch, at least going into the afternoon. By 7 p.m., starting to get some of that clearing out. There is a chance that as a cold front works in, that a couple of these showers, not looking that impressive right now, but it is something we'll still have to watch, because if the earlier storms maybe aren't as intense or as widespread, there might be some more sunshine that this computer projection isn't picking up on, and those storms could be a little bit stronger than what they're showing right now. There could be maybe some yellow and red in there that could be an indication that there might be a stronger storm even as late as 10 p.m. But it does look like the prime window for any of these storms is really going to be from about 2 p.m. until 8 p.m. this evening. There may be an hour outside of that if we get those storms in Indiana right now moving in and maybe becoming severe. But the severe window I really think is going to be from 2 p.m. to 8 p.m. here for today. So that all clears out, and then we get some quieter weather here going into your Wednesday, and definitely a welcome sight after just kind of how active it has been here over the course of the last really couple of months. We had a lot of active weather back in March. Even into the first half of April, we've had some storms here recently. We got the storms, of course, today. We even had a confirmed tornado back on Friday evening. That was in Darke County in western Ohio. So there has been some active weather even recently, and it will be nice to finally catch a break here looking ahead to tomorrow. But in the forecast, we do have some more showers and storms going into Thursday. Right now, severe risk doesn't look that high. It is something we'll have to watch, but I do think more just general showers and storms may be in the forecast here for Wednesday, or for Thursday, I should say, with potential for some heavier rainfall. But tomorrow, if you have any plans, it is looking like a beautiful day. We got more sunshine here, and temperatures should be into the lower 70s. But our risk, again, highest risk, like I mentioned here earlier on, strong wind gusts over 60 miles per hour. That's going to be the highest threat that we have to watch here for today. But still, it is in the medium category for hail and a tornado. If those storms don't form into that line, if they stay just individual cells, that might produce that hail and tornado threat. And then, like I said, the flooding threat should stay pretty much on the low side. So here's a look at our 7-day forecast as we go through the next few days. Again, a little bit of cool down here for tomorrow. Down to 72 degrees with really a lot of sunshine here through the day, a few clouds into the afternoon. Then we're watching Thursday into Friday. There's that chance for some more showers and thunderstorms. Some heavy rainfall could be a possibility. I think the severe threat may be staying on the low side here, but it will be something we'll watch. And then look at that. We're cooling down here for Saturday down to 64 degrees, but we're right back into it, though, as we go into the end of the weekend and for next week. Temperatures in the lower 70s here on Sunday, and then we are up to 75 degrees, really sunny and 75 going into next Monday. So some decent conditions here in the forecast. So I want to go back to looking at Facebook. Again, if you are watching us here right now on Facebook, you can go ahead and submit any questions that you have about the overall severe weather threat that we have here for today. So let's, I'm just going to kind of scroll through and see what we got. Somebody saying, looks like most of Ohio is covered. Yes, we do have pretty much the entire state of Ohio has a risk for severe weather. The highest risk is very focused in that orange that you saw across central Ohio into the northeast part. So let me go ahead and we'll go ahead and skip over to that just so we can kind of talk about the risk area one more time. In case you missed it here, this is the overall risk. So notice it does encompass a pretty large area of Ohio. And then further to the northwest up towards the Toledo area, there's a level 2 in the yellow. And going down into parts of West Virginia, there's also the yellow. That is a slight risk. So it does cover the entire state. So we'll have to watch storms developing to the northwest and then kind of tracking to the south and east as we go through the day, bringing us that threat for strong to severe thunderstorms. So it does appear like a lot could happen this afternoon, but what really plays into it is what's happening this morning further to the west. Those showers and storms that we were tracking on the radar picture, are those going to hold together? Are those going to impact storms developing later on this afternoon? That's very possible. It even happened yesterday. We were watching storms with the same storm system further west in Iowa, Minnesota, and Wisconsin. There were showers and storms in the morning. There was a break, and then we saw more thunderstorms developing in the afternoon closer to South Dakota, and those all tracked to the east across Minnesota and Iowa, producing severe weather. So that could be the same situation that we have today, where we have a little bit of activity in the morning, early afternoon, that clears out, and then we get some redeveloping storms around central Ohio, and those move through for the late afternoon and for the evening. So it could be a couple of different rounds of storms. One might be stronger than the other. That's what we kind of have to watch and wait and see how it really all evolves. We have that risk. The environment is there. It's just really as we get into the afternoon, we really can't say for sure exactly what's going to happen until we start to see the storms developing and how they grow, how they strengthen. Do they weaken? There's a lot of factors that really go into it, especially as we get through this afternoon and for this evening. So if you're just joining us here on 10 TV Plus, the time is now 10:45, so we're going to be talking about this for about another 15 minutes or so, and just going to go through just what we're talking about here for today. If you're just joining us to talk about the severe weather threat, if you're watching us here on 10 TV Plus, or if you're watching us on Facebook here this morning, if you have any questions about the severe weather threat for your location, anything that's going to be impacting your day here for today, feel free to drop a question in the comments section on Facebook, and we'll get to answering those here for today. But let's dive into it here one more time, talking about the overall weather impact alert that we have here for today. We issued this back on Sunday as we were tracking that potential risk here, and it started to get a little bit more elevated. Back on Sunday, at least in the morning, it was a level 2, and then it went up to a level 3, and it's been consistent with that level 3 risk, that orange that you saw on the map, with that higher threat for strong to severe thunderstorms. And what we're really tracking is going to be that potential for storms producing some of those higher wind gusts, over 60 miles per hour. It doesn't take a lot of wind to do some damage, knocking some branches down, impacting trees that could potentially even impact power lines in your area. So 58 to 60 miles per hour, that's about the threshold. 58 miles per hour is the threshold for severe weather, for severe thunderstorms to be warned for with the National Weather Service. So that's what we'll be watching for this afternoon, but there's potential that the winds could gust even higher, up to near 70 miles per hour. Not only is it going to be that risk for damaging wind gusts, but it's also going to be the risk for some hail, and something that we saw that changed from even just yesterday when we were tracking this, how is all going to be playing out, is the risk for a tornado has actually gone up a little bit from yesterday. Reason for that is because there's just so much wind energy with this storm. There's a lot of spin with it, with the overall storm system that's tracking to our north, but we have a cold front that's going to be sweeping through the area, but there's just enough spin in the atmosphere that if a storm can stay by itself, not interacting with other storms around it, if it kind of stays isolated, as we say, then it could maybe tap into a little bit of that spin and perhaps produce a tornado. So we are going to be watching that very closely this afternoon. But what I think is going to be the higher concern is that we get the storms developing and they form into a line. When they form into a line, go a little bit more linear, then we talk about that higher wind threat. And that's what we are really seeing, that elevated risk here for today, is because of that potential for wind. So because there's a risk, stay connected here today. Make sure you have a way to receive severe weather alerts on your phone with the 10 TV app. You can always do that. And also watching us here on 10 TV Plus and 10 TV later on today, as we are tracking the severe weather threat for you here this afternoon. Right now, though, conditions, yeah, they're pretty quiet. There's nothing to worry about here this morning. We have a little bit of sunshine. It's kind of filtered. There's a bit more cloud cover moving in now because we have those storms off to our west, and even some of those showers that are falling apart from earlier storms last night. That's all been moving through the area, but it's leaving us with at least some cloud cover and just some of that filtered sunshine. And because it's cloudy, temperatures are gradually starting to warm up. We're getting into the mid 70s right now. We're around 74, 75, actually now up to 76 degrees there. So temperatures are warming up. We should get to around 80, maybe upper 70s, lower 80s here this afternoon across central Ohio. So enough warm weather. There's enough warmth. There's enough moisture around with our dew points on the rise, that humidity, kind of feeling that a little bit more today. So the environment is there for these storms to tap into and become strong to severe. On the radar picture right now, yeah, that's not happening. We're not there yet. We're not tracking any severe weather here locally. A couple showers falling apart there up around Marion and to the north around Toledo. Zooming things out here, you can see as we went through the last few hours, there was a little bit of lightning with that batch, but it's weakening. Same thing with this other little complex here around Indianapolis. There was some lightning there to the west, and then now it's falling apart. So there's this weakening trend going with at least that round and then this round up around Toledo. Then we look back to the west here, and a little bit more a stronger round of thunderstorms that we have to keep an eye on here moving into Ohio later this afternoon. Also, complex way down here, that's a little bit stronger. That actually has some severe weather warnings at the moment. I do think that one's going to stay to our south, so that's good news. But this one is going to be moving into Ohio. You can see right in there a pretty decent complex. There's no warnings on it, so that's good news. But it is a little bit stronger. There's a lot of lightning starting to pop up here. And you'll notice a lot of yellow, orange, and even red in there. Indication that it is a stronger thunderstorm. It's at least producing some heavier rainfall. Wouldn't be surprised if we're getting some small hail with that and some gusty winds, maybe near 40, 45 miles per hour. It's just not severe at the present time. Doesn't mean that as it tracks to the north and is kind of staying near and south of Interstate 70. So that's going to be tracking near Indianapolis and eventually moving towards Cincinnati, Dayton, and perhaps if it can hold together, it would be making its way into central Ohio, affecting areas around the Columbus metro. Chillicothe, maybe as far north as Marion and Kenton, but it could also be a situation where it stays a little bit further south and doesn't make it too far north of Interstate 70. So this is one we're going to be focused on for the early afternoon, and then what we're going to be watching after that is more of those showers and storms developing that aren't even around yet. As this complex gets a little bit closer, there's going to be some more energy moving in, and that could help to ignite a few thunderstorms here this afternoon and for the evening, that those would present that risk for severe weather. Like I said, though, with this complex further to the south and west, this one around southern Missouri, Springfield, there's been tornado warnings on it, some severe thunderstorm warnings on it. I do think that one's going to stay further to our south, so we don't have to focus in too much on that. But this is the outlook for today. We've been tracking this for the last couple of days. Again, this is that level 3 out of 5. So it is higher than we have seen in the past. We've had some more elevated risk. This is a level 3 for Columbus, pretty much all of central Ohio, really a large part of the state of Ohio under that risk for severe weather. And it stretches all the way from southern parts of Indiana, northern Kentucky through the state into Pennsylvania, New York State, upstate New York with that risk. And even outside of that, whether you have that higher risk or not, we can still see some storms in the green, even into the yellow. So whether there's a lower risk or a more elevated risk, there's still that potential for thunderstorms that could become severe. So we have to watch a large area here for today and how these storms develop. If they develop further to the north, how they strengthen as they start to drift further to the south with that cold front. Or do they develop a little bit further south here near the Columbus-Dayton area, Cincinnati, and continue to track further to the south and present more of the severe threat near and south of Interstate 70. It's really going to come down to where the storms actually develop and where they go for the next couple of hours this afternoon and evening. So we're watching really the development here, and we're watching that complex in Indiana right now. So looking at this on the hour-by-hour forecast, here comes that complex in from Indiana. Here is as early as 2 p.m., at least for some of our western counties around Springfield and even into London, and then getting into about 3 o'clock around the Columbus Metro, Circleville, Lancaster, and then that continues to build through. And this complex is what's going to pose that risk for some severe thunderstorms. Now, this is one computer projection, so just keep that in mind. This is a computer projection of what could happen. This isn't set in stone. This is just what we're looking at. This is one thing that we use as meteorologists to look at how things may evolve for the afternoon. So this is one projection. I will say another one that I was looking at this morning had a couple more isolated storms a little bit further to the north, and that's why we have such a large area that's under that risk, because there's that potential that storms could play out like this, but there's another potential that the storms could play out a little bit different way. So we have to really watch how things evolve over the next few hours with that complex in Indiana, and then more storms developing this afternoon. So we're watching that here for 4 or 5 o'clock, right around the evening rush hour, of course, and then that moves out pretty quickly. These storms are going to be moving at a rather fast clip, up to 50, maybe a little bit faster than that. So they're moving really quickly. And that's the main reason why we're not talking about a flooding threat here for today. We're talking about the wind, because the storms are moving fast. They have a lot of wind with them, so they're going to be able to become severe and produce those high wind gusts because they are already moving at a fast clip. There's a lot of energy and just motion associated with them that they can get up to wind speeds in excess of 60 miles per hour. And then also because there is some wind, and if that wind can rotate, if there can be a little bit of spin around, we could be talking about that threat for a tornado in addition to some hail. So that complex moves through, and then as we get into the evening, we're going to catch a break. So that's the round one. And depending on how that plays out, as we get the main cold front coming through, you'll notice a couple showers there to the north. If that first complex that you saw there around 3, 4 o'clock isn't as intense or isn't as widespread, and there's maybe a little bit more sunshine this afternoon, then it would give these storms the potential to grow and tap into that environment. If we see a lot of storms early on, that's going to basically end it for the rest of the day. And hopefully that's the case, and maybe we're not talking about as much severe weather. But if that stays rather weak, we could have to watch these storms to grow and see how those develop later this evening, and even getting into the 10 o'clock hour. You notice this computer model doesn't show a lot, but that doesn't mean that that complex isn't as strong, and these storms could grow a little bit stronger. So we're going to be watching a few different things happening here through the day. So it's a lot to track, and we have it covered for you here on 10 TV through pretty much through all day today, as we have that potential all the way through maybe as late as 10 p.m. here tonight. Meanwhile, as we go into tomorrow, much quieter, a lot quieter. A lot more sunshine, nothing to worry about. It's going to be actually a really nice day as we get into the lower 70s. But the risk for today is going to be, again, elevated risk. The higher risk is going to be for those high wind gusts in excess of 60 miles per hour, in addition to a tornado threat and a hail threat, as the hail could get up to over quarter size, maybe as large as golf ball size here for today. And because the storms, like I said, are moving quickly because they have so much energy, wind associated with them, we're not talking about a high risk for flooding. Really actually pretty low, because the storms aren't slowly moving. They're not moving over the same location one after another, producing so much heavy rainfall. There will be some brief periods of heavy rain with the storms, of course. That happens every time, but we just won't be talking about as significant threat for any flash flooding here today. But as we go through the 7-day forecast, like I said, quieter here tomorrow. We do have the chance for showers and storms back in the picture, though, as we look ahead to our Thursday into Friday and maybe a shower here into our early Saturday morning. But otherwise, we're tracking some quieter conditions, especially as we look ahead to Sunday and Monday here for next week, as we got more sunshine in the forecast. And overall, yeah, just a lot quieter weather. So again, that's a look at what we have in play today. I'm going to go back on Facebook here. If you're watching us on Facebook, I'm just kind of scrolling through to see if we have any more questions about what's going to be happening here today. Let me go ahead and refresh this just to make sure. So just bear with me for one moment as I get the computer reset here. All right, let's go back to, I'm going to go back to the overall map, just showing the radar picture right now, because I do want to talk about that here for just a couple more minutes, and then I'm going to send it back, and then we're going to, again, we're going to be tracking this here. You can join us at noon over on 10 TV. We're going to have the latest update. I'll be covering that here later on at noon in just 1 hour, as we are tracking that complex of storms moving in from Indiana. So it should be getting a little bit closer to the state. So right now, this is where it's focused in. And like I said, there's no severe warnings with that, but that doesn't mean that we couldn't see, them get a little bit stronger here as they continue to move across Indiana. So it does look like they are going to stay a little bit south of Indianapolis, but tracking those, if we put that into motion here, so you'll notice they're moving pretty much east, northeast, getting closer to Interstate 70, but it doesn't look like they're really going to cross. So it does appear like they're going to be moving towards Bloomington, maybe just staying south of the Indianapolis metro. But if we continue that on, that's getting closer to Cincinnati, Dayton, and if they can hold together, that would be getting them into the Columbus metro here this afternoon. So this is what we're going to really be focused in on, at least for the early part of the afternoon, and then it's going to be more if we get any of those storms redeveloping here after this complex moves through. So as I mentioned, there's a lot of things that we'll have to track here for today. We have you covered here on 10 TV Plus. Got you covered on Facebook. We'll also have you covered over on 10 TV for our show here at noon, and then also for 4, 5, 6, and then later on tonight as we're really tracking the storms clearing out of here later on this evening. So we're going to track it all here for you today. Chief Meteorologist Jerry Martz will be in later on this afternoon, keeping an eye on everything. I'll be here tracking it for you as well. And also, I believe Meredith is she's behind the TV right now. There you go. She's also here tracking everything for you today. So we're going to have it all covered for you. We'll watch how it all plays out for this afternoon. And like I said, it's going to be focusing in on these storms here in Indiana for this afternoon. So with that, stay safe. Make sure you have a way to receive warnings on your phone. If you have a weather radio, a phone, that's a good tool to have. And we'll be tracking for you here today.